Headed to Chicago anytime soon to take in a night on the city? Well, if you're heading there after Monday, you may not be required to show proof of vaccine or be required to wear a mask indoors. But you might want to keep that mask and that vaccine card handy. It's the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop, 637, and Chicago announcing yesterday that they're going to be lifting their vaccine passport requirement and their mask mandate for most indoor settings on the same day that Governor J.B. Pritzker announced that the indoor mask mandate statewide is going to be lifted. That's coming Monday, February 28th. So yesterday, the announcement came not just from the city of Chicago, but also from Cook County that they're going to be lifting that mandate for individuals to have to show proof that they were vaccinated before they can go into a bar, a restaurant, a gym, a theater, and of course, some of the independent groups, the restaurant associations, they're reacting as well to this news. But here's some of what Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot had to say, and Chicago Public Health Department Director Dr. Allison Arwady. To the questions about why this came about. Was it because of science or was it because of lawsuits? What's happening with schools? Because that was not something announced to be lifted. But you'll hear Dr. Arwady discuss a bit about what she thinks the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are going to be putting out in the weeks ahead, possibly modifying things. But here's from yesterday some of the things that Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was asked, and the response from Lightfoot and Dr. Allison Arwady about masks in schools and so on.
Liberty Justice Center filed a lawsuit, now a motion for preliminary injunction over the city and county's vaccine passport orders on behalf of 8 Chicago and Cook County residents. The suit alleges that the order violates the plaintiff's constitutional rights, Illinois law, and Chicago Municipal Code. Are you ending the Vax passport order because of this lawsuit, and what is your response to the plaintiff's claims?
Absolutely not. Every time a challenge has come against what we've been doing, those challenges have been denied by every court that's heard them, state or federal, but I'm not going to comment on the particulars of that lawsuit. We follow the data and the science. Look, I'm a 30-plus year litigator. I'm not afraid of a lawsuit.
Not just here, but across the country, people are looking at metrics. They are looking at what does it mean to be burdened as a community, to the point especially where you threaten your healthcare system. So you've heard me talking a lot about the hospitals and the healthcare system because that remains the biggest concern, not just here, but around the country. And so we're not going to get into specifics today, but we will continue to follow, similar to the same metrics. I do expect the CDC to likely announce some updated guidance there, probably in the next week or two. And I would expect that we would be broadly going along with that as we have to date. But I can say we're in a good place. We'll continue to make decisions based on the data and the risk, and do everything we can to not have to put stricter mitigations in. Since we reopened fully last April, as you know, we've actually not closed anything. We've not put any capacity limits in. One of the ways we've been able to do that is during the surge, have the indoor masks, and then during the big surge, have that indoor in the high-risk setting vaccination. But we're at a place where those can be lifted at the city level. I, of course, remain supportive of the individual businesses and other settings that choose to continue them, particularly in the short term.
So again, that was Chicago Dr. Arwady with the Chicago Department of Public Health, and also Mayor Lori Lightfoot discussing some of the things about lifting the mandates for masks, but also vaccine requirements for customers of indoor facilities. What's interesting there is you kind of heard Dr. Arwady touch on that a bit about how the local businesses can still require these things. And I reached out to a variety of different organizations yesterday to try to get some response, including the Illinois Restaurant Association. And ultimately, they said that they're happy to see these changes. They said that it's going to inspire confidence in the restaurant industry, and it's also a promising sign of things to come. But you also have the Chicago Independent Venue League. I asked them for a statement as well, and they represent a lot of independent nightclub type of environments, comedy clubs, and so on. And they said in the statements that every venue is different, and patrons should keep their vaccine cards and masks handy should they still be required. So we'll see that play out, of course, in Chicago. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. You can always chime in live and local. We'll go ahead and see if we can get a call here in at 217-629-7970. Got one. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, hey, Greg, how's it going today?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, not bad. All these mandates, and they're finally lifting them, and I just can't help but think about how close the election is, and the low polling numbers, and the fact that, I'm pretty sure about every Democrat's going to come out and be like, well, we did it. We saved all of you. Everything's great because of what we did, and now we're gonna lift all these things, and they're all gonna pat themselves on the back, not realizing that they didn't do a thing.
Well, they'll, of course, point to, transmission rates and the decline of those transmission rates, and they may say that those are from the mitigations. But if you just look at the natural wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a natural ebb and flow, and that seems to be just the natural progression of viruses. Whether or not the mandates and the mitigations actually did anything, I really think that we should have an independent audit with multiple different auditors looking at all of this, very similar to how they do science and data, to get the true understanding.
Every aspect of it.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. We'll see if we get that kind of review. I don't know if we will, though. But again, Chicago lifting mask and vaccine mandates, though some local organizations, including venues, bars, restaurants, they can still require you to show proof of a COVID-19 vaccine in Chicago and Cook County if that local business wants to. Now, I reached out to, for instance, the United Center. I have yet to hear back from them because, listen, I mean, a lot of people travel to Chicago. You may have already gone to Chicago to take in a show, but maybe some of you didn't because you didn't want to have to deal with these vaccine mandates to have to flash your papers in order to go into a venue. And we heard a lot, too, about since the beginning of the year, the vaccine requirement's been in place. A lot of businesses in certain areas, especially if they were close to the Cook County line, noticed some problems. Noticed a decline in patrons. So it definitely has had an impact. We'll be talking more about Chicago in particular with the Illinois Restaurant Association just after 8 o'clock this morning. But we'll also talk with them about a variety of other things as well post-pandemic. So stay tuned for that. 217-629-7970. I'll take one more call before we talk more about a few other COVID-19 mandates news. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, hi. I guess the one part when I listen to that, and I didn't catch all of it, but that seems to be upsetting to me is it's like every time they have a news conference, or maybe it's just the ones I listen to, it's always, well, we're not going to get into the specifics. And I'm like, well, aren't we entitled to the data? If you're making a ruling or making a statement, just to at least give the statistic to back up what you're saying. But
they did show some graphs and some statistics and some, the transmission rates and the hospitalizations, and they said these are the metrics that we're following and so on. So I mean, they did offer that, but again, is it because of the downward trajectory? Is it because of these mandates, the masks, and the requirement to show proof of vaccine to get into a restaurant? Was that really what made the numbers go down, or were the numbers already going down just because of the natural ebb and flow of the virus?
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. So other mask issues being lifted. You've got the Illinois Supreme Court. They've announced that they're actually going to be lifting their mandates. Press release released yesterday said Illinois Supreme Court amends order on courthouse mask policy effective February 28th. The amended order states that each circuit court may adopt rules requiring the wearing of masks in courthouses pursuant to appropriate public health guidance. Absent such local rules, the wearing of masks within courthouses is permitted but not required, they said. But the Illinois Supreme Court, not just taking up that issue, they could possibly take up another issue. Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday filing the paperwork necessary to have the Illinois Supreme Court hear the appeal that he has. So some background here on the mask mandates for schools, but it wasn't just the mask mandates. It was the exclusion policies to keep students from school if they were around a suspected COVID-19 positive, and also the vaccine or testing mandates for school staff. So last fall, you had two separate lawsuits, one more than 700 parents suing 145 plus school districts over mask and exclusion policies, and another lawsuit, dozens of staff suing more than 20 school districts over vaccine and testing mandates. Those were heard in January. February 4th, the Sangamon County Circuit Court Judge Raylene Grishow, she ruled that the governor's mandates were null and void, and that schools should conduct themselves accordingly. And then ultimately, you had more school districts say, we're going mask optional, and that number continued to increase. And then last week, you had the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, a bipartisan panel of state lawmakers that oversees administrative rules. They blocked the governor's emergency rules that were filed just the day before on Monday last week. JCAR blocked that on Tuesday, and then the appeals court on Thursday said that the governor's appeal is moot because of JCAR's action. Well, yesterday, the governor made good on his promise with the Illinois Attorney General filing motions to the Illinois Supreme Court to take this case up on an expedited fashion, but it's unclear if the Supreme Court will even take up the case. So again, gave you that background on these cases and where they're at. But Tuesday, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul filed the motions to the Illinois Supreme Court, including an emergency motion to stay pending appeal, which would mean the court could say, okay, we're putting a stay on the Sangamon County Circuit Court judge's ruling, pending an appeal ongoing. But they also are looking for an expedited hearing as well. They said the temporary restraining order entered in this case impairs the defendant's ability to ultimately protect the public health. And again, that lawsuit filed by parents across the state suing 145 different school districts. They have this now filing to the Illinois Supreme Court. And whether or not the Supreme Court takes this up, that's a different story. So the plaintiffs in the case, they argue that their due process rights to challenge quarantine orders, like requiring masks, being excluded from school, or vaccinating or testing, it violates their due process rights by being mandated. Now, the Illinois Supreme Court, they have yet to indicate if they're going to take these challenges up. We'll see what happens, but the official filings have been made by the Attorney General on behalf of Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, speaking of Attorney General, you've now got three names that are vying for the Republican Attorney General nomination. The nomination petitions are already circulating. You've got a March 7th start to the filing, so that's coming up here pretty quick. And that 1 week filing period is when everybody's going to be throwing in their nomination petitions. But you have several candidates that are now out in the ether, so to speak. And we talked with one of them yesterday who's been pretty involved in the ongoing litigation that the governor just filed for the Illinois Supreme Court to take up, and that is the litigation that parents brought blocking mask and exclusion policies and vaccine and testing for staff at schools, and that's the attorney Thomas DeVore. We talked with him yesterday. He announced this week that he's running for the Republican nomination, but that's after two others have already been in the running, so to speak, circulating petitions. You'll hear here from a couple of different individuals. One, Steve Kim. We talked with him. He's a Republican and shared some of his thoughts. You'll also hear here in this little segment David Shostakis. He's an attorney looking to get the Republican nomination. And, of course, also you've got attorney Thomas DeVore that you'll hear here as well. And I think the theme that's really kind of central to some of the statements you're going to hear is about the attorney general representing the governor and not the people of Illinois, something that the Republicans are going to be hammering hard, I imagine, heading into the primary and into the November general election.
A diverse background in both in law and government. I've worked with numerous businesses and governments all around the world, and I've been able to really understand throughout the globe, and I've seen the importance of anti-corruption policies and also the rule of law. I've also served in government, worked for Governor Jim Edgar, was a local township official, and recently I was a commissioner for the Illinois Human Rights Commission, where I've adjudicated hundreds of civil rights cases and understand the importance of protecting our civil liberties. I've been appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court on the Rules Committee, giving me an understanding of the intricacies of our Illinois court system. I'm not a career politician, but I believe I have a good diverse background in both law, business, and also in the government.
They actually rewrote the analysis of the law that stood 20 years that said the governor could only exercise his authority for 30 days. But Pritzker didn't like that, so Kwame Raoul goes and he writes a new opinion and says, oh, never mind, he can do these sequential orders. They didn't like the law, so they just pretended it was different. This is crazy. This is crazy. There's 15 other duties in the Illinois Attorney General Act, most of which are not paid attention to because, of course, the current Attorney General acts as the wingman for the governor. The previous Attorney General acted as the wing lady for the Speaker of the House.
The people of this state put me in that position, and I promise you on my life, it won't happen here anymore. Because if any governor, I don't care what party he's from or she's from, you try to do that, you're going to have the full force of the Attorney General's office to deal with. Think of the suffering that's happened the last 2 years at all levels of government, from Governor Pritzker all the way down into some of our local bodies of government. The harm that's been done to our people, to our business owners, to our children, it's unimaginable. And they need to be held to account for that at all levels, top to bottom, held to account. And I'm not so sure, with all due respect, that Mr. Raoul's prepared to make them account for that.
So again, hearing those three Republican candidates vying for the GOP nomination for Secretary of State, it's definitely going to be an interesting race. That's for sure. All right, 6:54 now from Culver's West on Wabash.
Shrimp, cod, and walleye. Oh.